Welcome to the Deep Chat.
All right, Brad, a question for you. Should self-driving cars, or at least having them on the road in an uncontrolled way, should self-driving cars be paused?
No. I don't know. And I'm scared as to what I'm going to hear because I haven't read this news article that apparently you have found.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned saying no, but my gut says no, and that it's always due to poor software quality or some engineering mistake, and that can quickly be fixed.
Well, you're not in charge in this situation because General Motors did decide to take a little pause on automated vehicles, pulling apparently 950 of them off the roads, I think just in California, although maybe that's the only place they were testing. All this in response to a recent accident in which a woman was injured, maybe killed. I'm sorry, I should know that. Doesn't matter in some sense, even though obviously one is worse than the other. But it's a rather complicated situation, actually, I think we should get into.
What in particular complicates it? Dragged or killed, doesn't matter. Injured or killed.
Right. Well, here's a complication. The initial impact was not due to the self-driving car. There was a human driver who struck a human pedestrian, pushing that person in front of the self-driving car.
And then the self-driving car did what?
I would love to report that it stopped and it couldn't avoided this, but actually the person went under the car and was dragged about 20 feet.
Oh, they went under the car. So the self-driving car was actually moving at the time the pedestrian got knocked in front of it.
Yeah. It's like, that horrible thing in like a driver's ed movie where the car is just going on the street and then a kid appears out of nowhere from behind a car?
Right.
It's sort of that scenario.
Well, the first question I would ask is, has this or could this likely happen with a human? Meaning the human drags a person. I've heard many stories of that where they're not even really fully aware that it happened.
Yeah, the statistics, I wish I knew them. I don't intimately, partially because it's not just a number. You have to ask a lot of questions about it. But I'm sure we would find that there are a startlingly high number of accidents per day because there are lots of people in cars every day. And of them, some are really bad, where some person made a really bad mistake or dragged someone. I don't think that's common. I know a lot of people who are in car accidents, no one who was dragged, but for sure it probably happens on a daily basis, I would guess.
Well, from a statistician's perspective, how much do you need, how many incidents of this car dragging someone do you need to compare it, or how much time on the road do you need to count and counting the number of times an autonomous car has dragged someone versus the amount of time on the road and how many people dragged an actual person? Like, can you compare those two? I mean, to me, it's like, if it does better than the person, then issue a software update, correct for it, and keep going. You follow me?
Yeah, I think your instincts are right in the sense that that's how it should be, and we're not going to get to zero. There's no situation where cars are just safe. They just need to be safer than people. That's the minimum, and we're not that safe as drivers. The statistics, as I understand them, and this is partially why I'm not quoting anything, because they all point to self-driving cars being safer. They'll tell you about the gajillion hours it's been on the road and how few accidents it's had and this and that. And all those things are the truth, but I'm not convinced it's apples to apples with human drivers, because without a doubt, all those, hundreds of hours of safe autonomous driving were on like a somewhat controlled course kind of situation. It's like, it's not a fair comparison, I think.
When you say not a controlled, or it is a controlled course, you're talking about, specific cities.
Yeah, exactly. And conditions too. Like, I'm sure if road conditions, California, we don't necessarily have all that bad of weather, maybe up north, but it's not like Chicago. If I was doing this in Chicago, I'd probably pull the fleet off the week on certain days. It's just too rainy or too snowy. Yet human beings find a way to navigate that well.
Well, we can both attest that in Chicago, there's way more accidents when there's snow or rain. So again, how much better does the human do versus the car? And I think you're right. And in certain weather instances, my guess is that we see a drop in performance. And I'm not sure even autonomous vehicles have managed that as well as a human could. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
I don't know either. The other reason the numbers are fake is because the companies have to play it safe. Even if they're like, well, we killed less people than the average human driver does, no one's going to accept that answer. You really have to stick to 0 in these early days so you can take no risks.
It's kind of like people's criticism of COVID. Like, are we legitimately asking for 0 COVID? If we do, we have to shut down all of society. If we're legitimately asking for 0 deaths by autonomous vehicles or injuries even, it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the death knell for vehicles now. I could have a conspiracy theory here, Kyle, because I like conspiracy theories.
Sure.
Even though I definitely don't believe them. I just think they're fun. What if, this is General Motors, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or Cruise, but I believe that's wholly owned or something.
What if they want the autonomous vehicle industry to die, or they want to slow it down? So
this is a good one. And they pick this person as sacrifice. It's the CEO's ex-girlfriend or something. Yeah.
Well, they just saw an opportunity. Now this is just slowed down autonomous vehicles in California.
Yeah, I mean, that without a doubt. But honestly, I think there's another mitigating factor here I want to share. And I'm saying this sort of as plainly, not an accusation, but the claim has been made that Cruise was not forthcoming with the video footage that, of course, they have from the vehicle, that what was initially presented had been edited to remove some of the aspects of the dragging and whatnot. I don't know. That sounds a little sketchy and a little plausible, but apparently they say the full video has now been disclosed and the police or whoever officials look at it are looking at it.
I can understand why their attempt to minimize it is there and that law enforcement should get all of the footage, because anytime someone falls in front of a car, autonomous or not, it's horrific.
Of course, yeah.
Right? There is no good outcome to that. None. And having the general public see it is, though not their fault, perhaps, which it sounds like it wasn't their fault that the woman fell in front of the car or was bumped in front of the car, that there's no good outcome to that. That's the branding, everything. There's just 0 good outcome. It's not like they're trying to hide the fact that it happened. God, I wouldn't hate for that footage to get out too if I were in their position. Law enforcement's another thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it got out exactly. I haven't seen it. I also haven't looked for it, to be fair. But I believe the accusation was that it didn't go to the law enforcement right away, which to me is a big no-no. Any situation like this is time for full disclosure in our culture.
Yeah, definitely. Well, do you think this will slow down autonomous vehicle adoption?
Adoption, no. I don't think this is a big enough news story, unless you're saying the absence of these taxis are going to make people less likely to think about getting their own, that sort of psychology argument maybe. But this hasn't seemed to have gotten any big public backlash kind of thing. So no, I don't think this is going to be a slowdown in sort of the rollout sense, maybe a slight economic slowdown in the way a recession slows down an industry.
Well, honestly, I think that the biggest barrier for autonomous vehicles is still regulatory, and this could slow it down in that sense, because I'm sure the people in the regulatory committee or on the regulatory committee have seen this story, and it just creates more negativity towards, what could possibly happen. And I think nobody wants to be responsible for that. No regulator wants to be responsible for even a single death. So in my mind, it may slow things down from a regulation perspective.
For what it's worth, it appears General Motors would have been on track to earn about $1 billion in revenue from Cruise by 2025, and they're not going to get that now.
No, they're not. That was never true. There is,
according to this article,
$1 billion by 2025. There is not enough autonomous cars to even generate a fraction of that. I mean, a fraction, 100 million sounds even high. When's the last time you saw an autonomous car or even had the option to get in one?
I've never had the option to get in one. I never I probably could have if I'd set my mind to it, but it's never come along.
Never come along for me, ever.
Oh, I mean, I was in somebody's Tesla and we put the auto drive on, but that doesn't count really.
That's not the same. I have never been in LA or San Francisco where I've been offered in some way an autonomous vehicle. I've seen a few of them here and there, but I often just consider them kind of party tricks or novelty. Like, it would be neat to drive in one, but I know they're not quite ready for prime time. So Who's earning $1 billion off those? That sounds like someone cooking the books to make it look better.
Could be.
It'll probably become a write down. Autonomous cars seem to me like similar to a lot of the space industry. In the space industry, there's a lot of brilliant ideas, big ideas, but the barriers to get there require a ton of capital and a lot of technical knowledge. And I just don't know that General Motors is going to have the guts to do that. They definitely don't do software.
That's true, yeah. I have that outsider impression as well of like, these guys are not technology, they're old school. But I have that in this, like, I know the name of the company sort of way. I've never read their disclosures. I don't know.
Right. So ultimately, I don't think they should pause them. I mean, should General Motors pause their autonomous vehicle? Maybe for a few days or weeks as they figure out, a software patch for it. But
sure, yeah.
It certainly shouldn't be indefinite, nor should it be some regulatory thing that says halt, because there are other companies that have been successful, like Waymo.
That's true, yeah.
The ultimate question is, who's going to be the first to get there? Do you think it will be Tesla, Kyle?
It's tough to say. It seems like that would be the safe bet. I'm saying that primarily because they've shown themselves to be a nimble organization, and that's hard to be. And the technology's pretty good from what I understand. I don't know if I would say it's best in class, but perhaps I would with enough research. So, yeah, if there's someone to wager on, it's probably Tesla.
Yeah, I'd say the same. There's two reasons. One is what you already said, that they have the technical skill and vision to get there. When is in question, but I think that their vision for how they're doing things is going to be a winning vision. And the second thing is deep pockets. Similar to the space industry, a lot of these great ideas that we all want require deep pockets.
Sure.
We won't get there without someone continually funding it over the long term. And in Tesla's business model, they're effectively funding it through sales of electric cars and driving down the price of electric cars and keeping their margins high. So they've got a cash cow that is going to feed that next generation. So they're incentivized to do it anyway. Whereas GM, they probably have to raise capital to do this. I mean, I'm assuming Cruise was probably a, venture-backed solution that they either bought or bought into. So it's a little bit different of a situation. Their P&L is probably horrible, and you can only go so long losing money as a company
before
somebody pulls the plug.